In my life, one of the greatest passions I've cherished is the act of traveling. For me, it has never been about the destination itself, but the journey. Those long bus rides, road trips, and even the seemingly endless hours on airplanes that others find fatiguing, I've always cherished. It's this love for the journey that led me to embark on a spontaneous adventure back in 2015. One day, without much of a plan in mind, I decided to call up a friend in Karachi and asked him to pack a few clothes and meet me at the Daewoo bus station. This friend of mine had a deep respect for me, and perhaps partly out of a slight fear of questioning my whims, he agreed without hesitation. As we stood at the Daewoo station, I asked the staff which bus was departing next. They informed me that the next available bus was bound for Abbottabad. I quickly decided on it, as I had always held a fondness for the north. Little did I know that this spontaneous choice would lead to a remarkable adventure. It was March, the off-season when northern places are relatively empty and many roads are closed. Upon arriving in Abbottabad, I set off on foot to find a tea stall, but after a fruitless 10-minute walk, I gave in and hailed a cab. My only instruction to the driver was to take us as far north as possible. Time passed, and eventually we found ourselves crossing Mansehra late into the night. There we came across a hotel called Ashiana, adorned with captivating light decorations caught my eye, and I decided this would be our refuge. Days went by, and one morning as I stepped outside, the sun's rays greeted me. It was a sign to move on. We hired a car to continue our journey northward, reaching Kiwai, where a small tea shop by a flowing stream caught my eye. We ordered tea and pakoras and noticed an old man running the stall, assisted by his young son. After settling the bill, we continued our journey. As we reached the intersection of Kiwai and Shogran, we found it necessary to rent a jeep due to the inadequacy of regular cars for navigating the rugged, mud-covered mountain roads ahead. Our ultimate destination was Siri and Paya Top, a pristine snowy realm accessible exclusively by jeep during this season, but only up to Siri. To reach Paya Top, one had to undertake a challenging trek through 3 feet of snow, making it a nearly impassable journey. Our path presented 2 options: a shorter, 30-minute route with a steep incline that felt rather perilous to me, and a longer, 90-minute alternative. My friend chose the shortcut, while I embarked on the lengthier trek. Midway through my journey, I crossed paths with the elderly man from the tea stall we had visited earlier, descending from the heights. We exchanged pleasantries before I continued my ascent. Upon finally reaching the summit, I found myself enveloped by clouds, with most of them appearing below me. There I stumbled upon an isolated, lush plateau, adorned solely by a solitary cottage. This cottage was cared for by a lone local who, during the tourist season, managed a small hotel within its cozy confines. The landscape was devoid of any other human presence, except for this one cottage where my friend eagerly signaled me over. Inside, we relished a comforting cup of tea and managed to persuade the owner to prepare some food, albeit at double the usual price. Over tea, I shared my chance encounter with the old man during my trek, but my friend had not crossed paths with him. The cottage owner overheard our conversation and declared, "It's impossible. You two are the only visitors here for the past week." Perhaps the old man had visited, and the cottage owner might have missed him, so I simply shrugged it off and decided to take a leisurely stroll, reveling in the captivating view of the valley. 2 hours later, darkness enveloped the surroundings, prompting my friend to come find me and guide me back to the cottage, where a tantalizing chicken kahai awaited us. As we dined in the absence of electricity, I had an epiphany about the importance of savoring food through senses other than sight. Dining in complete darkness was a revelation, and ever since that night, I've made it a habit to close my eyes when taking the first bite of a meal, to fully appreciate the rich tapestry of flavors. With our farewells to the cottage owner, we made our descent to Shogran, where we had booked a hotel. After a few days, we resumed our journey and eventually reached Naran. Our destination was Chil Saif ul Maluk, a place where most tourists flocked to the front, enticed by its awe-inspiring vistas and the bustling food scene. However, I veered toward the quieter, more secluded perimeter near the mountains on the opposite end, closer to the trail leading to Ansu Jil. There, I settled down, deep in contemplation about life, and experienced a profound realization of belonging. This was my country, my home. Here, there were no visa issues or looming departures. It was a feeling I'd yearned for over years of globe-trotting. Even at the base of the most scenic mountains, I often carried the nagging sensation that my visa would soon expire, and I couldn't stay indefinitely. However, at Jil Saif ul Muluk, for the first time in my life, I felt a sense of empowerment, ownership, and true belonging that transcended the transient nature of travel. As I immersed myself in contemplation, a gentle hand rested on my shoulder, jolting me from my thoughts. I looked up and saw the old man from the tea stall standing before me. After exchanging greetings and pleasantries, our conversation unfolded as follows. Me. What brought you to Paya Top when our paths crossed? A serene smile graced his weathered face as he replied, This entire valley is my sanctuary. I reside nearby in Kiwai, nestled on a mountaintop, and I often traverse these untamed jungles, wandering from one peak to another. On the day our paths converged, I was crossing that mountain, making my way back home. I inquired further. So are you here to relish the sights of Saif ul Muluk too? You must have explored this paradise countless times. You're truly fortunate to call this northern haven your home. His gaze shifted to the distant horizon, and he replied, with a hint of nostalgia, I do visit, not merely for sightseeing, but to reconnect with the essence of existence. It serves as a reminder to never lose sight of oneself, to always cherish the knowledge that this land is an extension of your very being. You belong here. Deeply moved, I shared my own musings, saying, I've been contemplating a similar feeling lately, the sense of ownership one feels in their own homeland. His enigmatic smile returned, and he offered his wisdom. Malik Saib, your identity isn't defined by your country. True ownership starts with possessing yourself, embracing your imperfections, and forging your own sense of belonging. Baffled by the depth of his message, I decided to shift our conversation. Oh, where is your son? I don't see him with you. His voice quivering, he turned to walk away. Oh, Jalal. Jalal has gone. Driven by curiosity, I pressed further. Has he gone back home, or is he somewhere else? The old man started to walk towards the path leading to Ansu Jil, never glancing back, but his voice carried back to me as he repeated softly, Oh, Jalal has gone. That night, I mulled over our encounter with the old man and his cryptic words. What baffled me was how he had addressed me as Malik Saib, a name I had never disclosed to him. 2 weeks later, on our way back home, I decided to make a stop at the old man's tea stall by the stream in Kiwai. To our amazement, the place lay in ruins, appearing as though it had been abandoned for years. Our driver mentioned that it couldn't have been, as this place had been shuttered for many years. We found it perplexing because we were certain this was the spot where we had tea during our trip here. We reluctantly returned to our car and continued down the road. A bit further ahead, we stopped at another tea stall. I inquired with the owner about the place a few kilometers up the road, and he confirmed the same story. It had been closed since 2002. I persisted, mentioning that we had definitely had tea there, but the owner refused to believe it. He explained that it was impossible because he knew the man who had owned that place, a man named Raheem Baba, who had passed away in 2004. He went on to share that Raheem Baba had been a very pious and loving man. His entire world had revolved around his son, Jalal. Tragically, in 2002, Jalal had succumbed to an illness, and after that, Raheem Baba had been devastated. The tea stall had closed, and he himself eventually passed away in 2004. As we sat back in our car, still puzzled by the mystery of the old man, a sudden realization washed over me. I'd heard the name Jalal before. It was the last thing the old man had said. Oh, Jalal has gone. It was then that I comprehended the uncanny truth. I had crossed paths multiple times with a man who had been deceased for over a decade. This journey became one of the most cherished experiences of my life, a blend of spiritual connection and personal growth. I realized that true ownership begins with embracing oneself, including one's imperfections, and forging a deep sense of belonging. I realized that Raheem Baba, even in death, had held on to his love for his son, his tea stall, and his community. He owned his grief, his loss, and his love. It was a moment of enlightenment, a revelation that ownership was not solely about tangible assets, but also about our feelings, our memories, and our identities. This journey, this encounter, had subtly shifted my perspective, making me more introspective, more appreciative, and above all, more human. Thank you for watching AIK Dastaan, where every tale is a testament to the human spirit and every voice resonates with the truth as they perceive it.